Hello, can you hear us this morning? Hopefully you can. Yesterday morning we had a little bit of gremlins in the system. People couldn't hear us. Can you hear me?
Quite, yes. I can hear you pretty loudly, yeah.
All right, a very good morning to you. Welcome along to Off the Ball AM. As ever, if you want to get in touch with us, you can tweet the show at Off the Ball, or you can get us on the comments on YouTube, or you can get us in the comments on Facebook, and we'll read them across the course of the show this morning. These are the talking points that we're covering on the show today. We will speak with Michael Doyle. He's the captain of Coventry City, who at the weekend got Mark Hughes sacked from the Stoke job. He's 36. He played for Ireland once under Brian Kerr, and he's had one of those careers where he's been a professional footballer for nearly 20 years. It's a phenomenal achievement when you consider the millions and millions of people all around the world who want to make their living in the game. We're also going to talk about the NFL playoffs this weekend. Owen has decided who he's going to support and who you should be supporting this weekend, and more than likely who's going to lose this weekend as a result of the fact that he's supporting them. Coutinho and La Liga, we'll talk with Graeme Hunter. We'll talk about Diego Costa. 8 minutes of pure, unadulterated Diego Costa. 2 bookings and a goal in the space of 8 minutes?
7 minutes.
7 minutes, there you go.
Incredible stuff.
Fake news on my part.
And the second one obviously came as a result of the goal because he jumps into the fans. It's like, yeah. And then one of his teammates afterwards is like, well, that's obviously Diego Costa being influenced by the English game because you're allowed to do that in England. No, you're not. You're not allowed to jump in and actually immerse yourself in the fans, which is what Diego Costa did. If
you jump over the hoardings, is that it? Is there like a cut-off point? You can go to the fans and like sit on the thing and...
As soon as you make physical contact with the fans, it is a yellow card in English.
Oh, is it?
As far as I'm aware,
physical contact?
Yeah. Like
so if you stand there and they surge down to you, it's like tough.
Remember the Sterling yellow card? Was that this season, at the start of this season? But he was eventually sent off, and that was just merely to do with the fact that there was fans all around him, and if you go towards them, some fans might, eventually leap onto the pitch. But I think Diego Costa's been viewed as an anglicised soul. He's come back with this brash nature. He's become an absolute brat, really, Diego Costa, since his time at Chelsea, and Atletico aren't liking it so much.
He's got 3 identities. He's a Brazilian, he's Spanish, and now he's English as well.
Kind of, yeah. Just the hooliganism has finally invaded Diego Costa's blood. He was such a mild-mannered boy before he went to Chelsea. Precisely.
Right, exhibit number 1 of why you should buy a newspaper. The headline in the Irish Times online: Mullins hopes Faugheen can return to action in Irish champion hurdle. You're like, will I bother reading the story? I'm not sure. A trainer hopes one of his best horses is going to run in Cheltenham. I mean, duh. But actually, the best headline of the day in many of the newspapers is on the same story in the Irish Times.
Absolutely. In Brian O'Connor's story, who also writes the online version, that the headline here is much better. Mullins does not believe Faugheen was got at. Which is amazing, really, because first of all, if you haven't heard the rumours that Faugheen might have been got at, or the dispelling of rumours that he was got at, you're like, wait a minute, what?
Hang on a second here.
What do you mean Faugheen was got at? I put money down on that horse and I thought it was just a freak results. So suddenly you're reading that article and you're trying to find out what the hell is going on, and what the hell is going on indeed is the question. Willie Mullins interviewed here by O'Connor, and of course he wants Faugheen to be available for the big races, but of course he says, I didn't think there was something suspicious. I didn't at the time, and I still don't. I've read all that stuff and you have to keep an open mind on it, but I'm happy there's something that we haven't put our finger on. He was going to the second hurdle that day. There was something up on the day that upset him. There was indeed something on the day that upset him, and suddenly Willie Mullins is just like, well, we don't quite know. It wasn't anything to do with skullduggery, but there was something.
Now, so the story goes on to say about in 2014, Mullins warned his stable staff about sedatives and about how easy it was for somebody to actually get at horses. So, this is obviously something that racing is a little bit conscious of. I'm just going to find the exact comment about that. So, prior to the 2014 Cheltenham Festival, he outlined how he urges his staff to be vigilant in relation to sedatives in particular. These comments were made in the context of a number of controversies involving anabolic steroids at the time. So clearly racing is a little bit concerned with this because, most sports do their best to ignore any of these types of scandals. You put your head down, you don't answer any questions about it, and you go, no, that's all nonsense. But actually coming out and addressing it is, I think, to be welcomed on the part of Willie Mullins. And it just opens a proper conversation and it makes it really interesting.
Yeah, it does. I kind of had this comical view in my mind after viewing these comments, that first of all, nothing overly sinister happened, because some of the rumours doing the rounds were absolutely mental about some of the things that might have happened to this horse. But at the same time, something's not quite right with the horse. What happened? Did somebody open the barn that morning and go boo into Faughín's face and then close the door, and then Faughín was rattled for the day, and that's what caused her to go down? I don't know. I don't know what actually... well, nobody knows, really.
I guess we live in a country where a horse was kidnapped by the IRA, and then, like,
anything
shot.
is possible now.
I mean, you know, like, and that passes into, and, like, no one knew that for about 20 years. It was kind of passed into folklore about, oh, this horse went missing, was kidnapped. Like, so... anything can happen.
There is huge scope for absolutely insane conspiracy theories here. If it wasn't for the kind of scope of libel laws and stuff, I would love to speculate about all the crazy things that might have happened. Well, but one of them might actually end up being true is the problem.
Well, and the thing is, the trainer says he doesn't think he was got at. So now you can actually largely speculate in a lot of this stuff in a way that, as I said, in many other sports you wouldn't be able to do. Let's take you through the newspaper headlines today, because it's a relatively busy day in the newspapers, considering there was only one match of not particular interest last night in the FA Cup. I guess it's of interest to Brighton and Crystal Palace fans, and to fans of the video assistant referees. Yeah,
but he wasn't used once, the video assistant referee, and there was a big call as a result of Glenn Murray's goal, which essentially had no kind of material effect on the game in the end, that the ball struck his knee, and the video assistant referee was not called upon, despite the fact that it was very close to the arm. And on first viewing you might have thought so, but these are confident refs, these are confident officials, and they're like, we will only use the video assistant referee when required.
Yeah.
So those people who are all like, this is going to slow down the game forever, then I'm not so sure.
I mean, fair play to them, right?
Absolutely.
For not going to the VAR.
That's my point, yeah.
But also, maybe they should just go to it and go, right, so you all know now. I was right. I don't think there's anything untoward here. I don't think there's any handball in it. I'm going to prove it to you now. Look, I've tottered over here, and I've looked at it, and I'm tottering back and going, no, I'm right.
Yeah, absolutely. When it's the winning goal in the game, you're probably looking at it and you're like, wait a minute, this is something that could send somebody through, knock somebody out of the FA Cup. I suddenly have to do my duty here and reduce my confidence in myself to have a look at the screen that's set up on the side of the pitch, but clearly not. I'm not actually sure who was refereeing the game last night, but there's a lot of confidence in that referee right there to say, nah, I'm okay. I'm a good enough referee to be able to handle this. Also, trust your eyes. And the fact that VAR is going to be subjective in a lot of cases as well. That's carried in a lot of the papers this morning, but the main story in the Irish Times Sports Tuesday is, of course, Philippe Coutinho, who signed for Barcelona yesterday. Mr. Money makes Coutinho's Camp Nou dream come true. That is Sid Lowe's story, who's in Barcelona. The Brazilian was unveiled, but injury will delay Barcelona debut for 3 weeks. He's posing there with a group of fans. You've also got City poised to make €35 million bid for Sanchez, while elsewhere on a couple of the papers this morning, we're sticking with football for the time being, because there's news with Harry Kane, and it's the inevitable story I think we all saw coming. I need trophies, reads the back of the Irish Daily Star. Kane warned Spurs he could move on. That other story there, which we'll touch on in a moment as well, is Joe Sheridan speaking on LMFM, saying lads are nearly detesting playing inter-county football. That's one is like, it's January, so you're going to see stories like this every single January, but the word detesting there is the powerful word by Joe Sheridan. We'll move on to that in just a moment, while I might just show you the back of the Irish Daily Mail as well. Kane warning, reads Oliver Todd's story there. Spurs must win trophies to keep stars like him at the club. So it's hard to tell right now how much is involved here in terms of fact, how much Harry Kane is already making an ultimatum to the Spurs hierarchy that he wants to win trophies or else he'll leave. But certainly it's the first inkling that something might be beginning to happen here, that he's got his goals record for the calendar year, which of course is the big one.
Yeah.
Now it's time to move on and get trophies.
Actually, he can retire now and be guaranteed a job with the BBC for 50 years. I assume that's just how this salary negotiation is going to go. I need trophies. I need trophies. I need trophies. Oh, I've got money instead. I'm going to have to get comfortable with my piles and piles of cash that Spurs are giving me. To the Herald this morning, City and 30 million Sanchez bid. That's the story across the back of a load of the newspapers today. That's the other long-running transfer saga that hopefully Manchester City will do the decent thing and stump up whatever the exact asking price is from Arsenal, and we can stop talking about the Alexis Sanchez to Manchester City move, and it just happens. Ringrose out for 6 weeks is the other one there. This is an exclusive from Des Berry. It did look like it was a high ankle sprain that Garry Ringrose had as he limped off, and that's what Des Berry says that it's been diagnosed as, and they're getting the 6 weeks effectively from the amount of time that Ethan Asewa and Josh van der Fleer were out with. I think 3 of the lads had it actually, Dan Levy as well, but Barry Daly was out for 9 weeks, so you'd hope that it's a relatively minor version of the high ankle sprain, as high ankle sprains go for Garry Ringrose, and I don't think he's going to see any action in the Six Nations until like the second last or last game, if he does, because he'll need to come back, prove his fitness, and then would he stick him straight in the team at that point? Very unlikely.
He might do. So if he goes 6 weeks down the line, it's like the 20th of February, then on the 24th of February they play Wales. So I don't think he's going to be risked for that. Then it's Scotland on the 10th of March before the big one against England. Well, we hope it's the big one against England.
So there's a week in between the Wales and Scotland game.
That's it, exactly. So that's the week where Ringrose will probably prove his fitness. He won't play the Wales game if it is going to be 6 weeks.
And you would hope at that point that a centre partnership, that the Bundy-Henshaw centre partnership has bedded down and is like, well, these two lads are in contention for player of the tournament. Are we really going to drop one of them?
That's the thing. Would Ringrose have actually started if he was fit? That was the question probably before the Interpros rather than after the Interpros at this point, that people were saying, Henshaw and Aki are looking at the best centre partnership. Right now, you would probably say Ringrose has played himself back into the team a little bit, but certainly you're not going to complain with Bundy Aki starting.
Right, so forget my 25 million quid. Sanchez wants the Seal City move now, even if it costs him a fortune. I wonder if Alexis Sanchez gets compensated by Manchester City for the fact that he doesn't have to wait until the summer. So Man City go, we'll give you Arsenal 35 million and we'll give you, Alexis, the 25 million that you would have gotten in the summer if you come to us now, because obviously it helps him on a bunch of different fronts. Or is he just stupid and blowing 25 million quid?
Yeah, but like, I suppose blowing 25 million quid is a lot of money. There's no kind of two ways around it. That it is a stupid thing to do.
Not an extra 10 grand a week here or there.
It's true. But do Manchester City, or would it be a stupid move on their part to just throw away 25 million quid? And we talk about this, that it's like, they're a small nation, they've got tons, they've got billions and billions. 25 million is a drop in their ocean. But these people are businessmen as well. These people will value £25 million and they will push a hard bargain. If they don't have to pay 25 million to Alexis Sanchez, they will not pay him the £25 million. So
what do you think happens? So why would Alexis Sanchez move? He's getting some money, right? The signing on fee for him is something.
I don't think it happens. I don't think if he is going to lose £25 million, Alexis Sanchez won't move. He's going to wait the 6 months. He will still get his move to Manchester City, pick up a little bit of form, get Arsenal into the top four, move to City in the summer. I
would like to see footballers doing this a bit more and just forcing their hands and stop letting the transfer fees be paid to the clubs, particularly when you're in an Alexis Sanchez situation where you signed for Arsenal and it's not like Arsenal developed you as a footballer. It's not like they were the ones who were plucking you from the streets of wherever for him or for whoever it is. It's like they should be making the money.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of free agency and the Bosman ruling. Gary O'Driscoll on Facebook says, lads, Coventry didn't get Mark Hughes sacked. His results over the last 3 months did. I mean, technically, they were the ones who were sticking the knife in his back. They were the straw that broke the camel's back. Conor Donahue says, I drive quite a lot. I've listened to the Harrington Kimmage podcast 3 times again. Great listening, guys. Well, you are a super fan, Conor. Good man yourself. And Niall says, yeah, it was top class radio. Yeah, it was really good. We're going to bring you some more Padraig Harrington goodness a little bit later on, talking about retirement.
Talking about transfers, we're changing to rugby here a little bit, and the exodus from Munster kind of seems to be continuing here in terms of staff, because Rassie is set to raid Reds for fitness coach. This is Munster Blow's former boss Swoops to lure influential Walters to Springboks. This is their fitness coach, the Aled Walters is his name. He's worked with the Brumbies, he's worked with a couple of other Super Rugby teams, and he was brought in by Rob Penny to be head of performance really and fitness at Munster. Worked closely with Erasmus, of course. Erasmus has gone down to the Springboks and now he wants him. It wasn't just Erasmus who brought him into Munster. This was somebody who was there when he arrived and now he wants to take him down to South Africa, and they're leading with that story as well. There he is, Walters, pictured on the front of the Irish Examiner sports section. Box move for Munster's Walters, blow for Province, as fitness chief Walters set to follow Rassie Erasmus to South Africa. An interesting one there to see what happens.
So the Racing Post leading with the big story in the racing world, which isn't that Faugheen wasn't got at, it's that Death Duty is out for the season. This is a big blow to Gordon Elliott. Death Duty was a general 8-1 shot for the JLT Novices Chase at Cheltenham before the news broke yesterday, and also prominent in the RSA Chase market at around 10-1. High hopes for Death Duty obviously at Cheltenham there. And Irish Grand National winning jockey Ger Fox has spoken, saying that he will regret taking cocaine until the day he dies, and he's urged fellow riders to speak out and seek help if they ever find themselves tempted by the drug. I'm not a bad person, I just made a terrible mistake in that one. And then there's a great stat at the top of the Man City Bristol City preview tonight. Sky Bet Championship outfit Bristol City have beaten more Premier League teams this season than top flight strugglers West Brom have. So they're not riding off Bristol in the game against what they say will be Manchester City's second string, but I think City are probably going to put out a decent team because it's a cup semi-final. Right?
It'll be a kind of a mix and match job, not as heavily weighted towards the first team as it was on Saturday in the FA Cup, but certainly you'll have more of the likes of your Zinchenkos and your Fodens and your Claudio Bravos.
I think so, yeah.
I think
Bravo, yeah. But
it'll probably be kind of like 5 and 6.
At this stage, do you not like, we'll get to Wembley, we'll win the trophy, we'll keep that momentum
Still
going?
Bristol City. And I know they knocked Manchester United out, but it's
semi-final,
two-legged affair. Things go badly, you just start your first teamers. Maybe.
Paul Collins been in touch to say, more swimming, lads. Top of the morning, hashtag OTB AM. When are you all going to cover more swimming? The Mona McSharry interview that we did before she headed off to the European Championships, her first senior competition as an Irish senior swimmer, is available on youtube.com/offtheball if that is your swimming kick or fix that you need done in the meantime. But yeah, we're always open to guest ideas and suggestions here. Do our research for us, basically, is what I'm saying. If you'd like us to cover anything on the show, feel free to get involved.
We'll have a look at the UK back pages now, and in The Guardian, Murray targets Wimbledon after surgery. The Scot has career-defining hip operation in Australia. He's to reduce his schedule after return in 14 weeks. Wimbledon really seems to be his main target now at this point. He's well, there was talks a couple of weeks ago that he might make the Aussie Open. He's missing that big time. Probably not going to make Roland Garros. So Wimbledon, hopefully we'll see Andy Murray back on the court. And time for change, reads the front of the Daily Telegraph sports section. That's to do with the Ashes disaster against Australia. There they are, jubilant down under as they've beaten England yet again.
Pretty horrible story about Peter Beardsley and a racism allegation about this is a complaint lodged by several of the academy players where he is the under-23 coach. 23 days to land Sanchez, 23 more days of headlines about Alexis Sanchez, unless Man City and Arsenal do the decent thing and get that transfer deal done. And then Yeovil have obviously drawn Manchester United in the FA Cup. We're going to talk with Coventry City captain Michael Doyle a little bit later on. They have drawn MK Dons away. MK Dons away comes out of the draw. It's not bad. And you're like, it's Coventry, so it's not great either.
There is no great draw, especially because there is no...
Away to Man United would be great, or at home to Man United.
Yeah. At the weekend, did you know there was no non-league team involved whatsoever in the FA Cup? I think it was the first time in decades that no non-league team had actually made it to the third round. So essentially, if you're a League 2 team, every draw is a bad draw in a competitive sense. One last
back page for you, rather. It's the Times Ireland edition. O'Neill is now Stoke's top priority, says Matt Hughes, their deputy football correspondent, who says that Peter Coates, the Stoke owner, has decided that Martin O'Neill is his number one target when it comes to the Republic of Ireland job. We'll talk about that a little bit more later on. Lads were speculating last night about it, and they'd asked the FAI some specific questions about O'Neill's contractual situation. And then another horse racing story. Rogue owner wanted horse to lose race. This is an exclusive from Johnny Ward. This is a trainer in England who's come forward and said that he was contacted by somebody who wanted to buy a horse from him and have it stopped in an all-weather track. So very interesting story there. And I guess maybe it's actually it's Ireland.
It's an Irish trainer, but the race would have been in England.
Yeah. So the notion that horses are being stopped on all-weather tracks all around racing in the UK and Ireland, it's definitely something that needs to be talked about because it seems to be fairly prevalent.
It's great. It's a Grade 1 winning trainer as well. So, we should point out that the trainer is the person who's come forward with the story here, and that person's done nothing wrong. So that person's come forward to Johnny Ward and was like, wait a minute, this is really weird. What's going on? And I think, as you say, a bit more awareness about this thing probably would be a shrewd move.
Okay. Let's bring up the talking points there again. So Alexis Sanchez to City, the Munster loss and Ringrose, they're the main stories from a rugby perspective. Big Joe's cut. We didn't do too much on this. This is Joe Sheridan talking. So Joe Sheridan obviously has had a very long intercounty career, which has been interspersed with periods of retirement from the game at intercounty level. Came back to play as a goalkeeper, ended up being sub-goalkeeper, and then left the panel just recently. He was speaking with LMFM at the weekend, and players nearly detest playing intercounty football at the minute.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what he's saying to LMFM. It's hardly surprising, though, at this point, is it? People can probably think that, they nearly detest the process of going out training in November, December, but he's making the point that they nearly detest the actual act of being an intercounty footballer. And what he's referring to here is teams that are not Kerry and Dublin. They're the two counties that he picks out that are immune to this detestation of inter-county football or football in general. And you can kind of see where he's coming from. The training to games ratio is incredibly high. They're trying to narrow it down, but they're only succeeding in doing that in hurling. Whereas the inter-county football scene for somebody who's not going to be in the Super 8 this summer is exactly the same. It's going to be a miserable summer if you don't have an odyssey like Carlo had last year, for example. So you can see where he's coming from. You can see that he's frustrated. And I think from Joe Sheridan, he's well placed to speak because he talks about the great Meath players that he's seen around the counties, getting good jobs and getting good cars and stuff like that. And
the end of it, will you?
He's had a pretty disappointing career, certainly towards the end of it.
If you had told anybody his age growing up that you would play as long as you did inter-county football for Meath and said you're going to get one medal, and you probably shouldn't have got that one, let's face it, you would have been like, what, you're joking me.
Well, that's the point, that he has that taste of 2010, the success in 2010, so he kind of knows what it feels like, and I think he's well placed in that regard to actually speak about it.
So just on that, right, Donegal Boyle has written a really interesting piece in the Indo about that. Inter-county life exacts big toll, but it needs to be a blessing rather than a burden for the chosen few. So Kieran Bergen was complaining at the weekend about not being able to drink while you play inter-county hurling and football as well. I mean, fair enough. The whole being obsessed with drink thing is this kind of weird. It's like, I have to be free to drink whenever I want to drink. It's like he's been talking about drinking 3 cans of Heineken of a night and telling the lads at train, I was drinking 3 cans of Heineken last night, nothing wrong with that. Watching TV, fair enough. Okay.
If you can handle it, fair enough, I suppose. But at the same time, there does need to be kind of
3 cans every night builds up.
3 cans every night is not the answer to the
any of
widening gap between Dublin and the rest. That's definitely.
No, I mean, let's just for clarity's sake, he didn't say it's 3 cans every night. It was just 3 cans that night that he was talking to the lads after a training. Yeah. But anyway, didn't want to get down that rabbit hole. Donegal Boyle brings up the really interesting point about Kieran McGeeney, saying that I still can't see where GAA players train that hard, despite what people may say. Any other sport trains much harder. If you look at a rower, a swimmer, a cyclist in this country, we're all competing at an amateur level. He said that in 2016, and I remember there was a furious backlash from a bunch of people on Twitter about the fact that he dared to say that maybe we kind of overstress the dedication that certain players feel they make to their sport. When you look at, for example, the rowers who are puking on, was it New Year's Day or was it the day after Stephen's Day? Whatever day it was.
Yeah, like the 28th, I think, yeah.
Yeah, so a little bit of context, a little bit of is it not something you're choosing to do here? Do you not choose to play inter-county football? Do you not choose to become a hurler? You can do something else at your time if you so desire.
But I think Kieran McGeeney answered his own question there, that we are amateurs, they are not getting paid for it. The rowers don't get paid that much. Granted, they're
it's subsistence living.
Effort per euro for a professional rower as opposed to a high-end Gaelic footballer who's getting a lot of perks is probably worse off. But you compare the rower to somebody from a weaker senior Gaelic football team, and suddenly you start to think, well, they're not actually that polarised. They are on a similar level. Now, for a Gaelic footballer to say, we train harder than a rower is absolutely ridiculous. But then for those quotes, it was McGeeney, was it?
Yeah.
Was that only last
2016,
year?
2016, yeah.
2 years ago.
Yeah.
At this point, wow, 2018's really crept up. But I can almost, there's a disbelief about that it's McGeeney saying that. He seems like the last person who would possibly say that we don't train hard enough to deserve pity, is essentially what he's saying.
He ain't throwing any pity parties, though.
No, that's for sure. Maybe it was like some sort of throw that grenade out into the media and see how my team reacts. And they're going to get no pity off me. They're going to be doing laps and laps and laps.
So, 2 more Longford players, and Colin Keys has this story. Brian Kavanagh and Dermot Masterson have followed Dermot Brady out through the door, and there was a stat about Dermot Brady's career where in his 17 years he never won more than 1 game in Leinster in a season, and there were 3 seasons where he won 1 game of the 17 years where he won a match in the Leinster Football Championship. And the point that you're making about Joe Sheridan is making, that for so many players it's pointless. That's why it's no fun. It's like, we're going to go and do this and we'll have a good league campaign, and the league campaign could be really interesting, and we might win 2 games. We might win our first game, we might get beaten in our second game in the provincial championship, and we might win 1 game or 2 games in the qualifiers. the system is broken. And that's a point that Noel Cahill makes on Facebook this morning. Why are so many players in the weaker counties so unwilling to want to change the structure? Until they decide that they're going on strike to have the league and championship merged into one campaign where you play for 4 months of the year and it's non-stop and everybody's guaranteed 6 or 8 games and it's meaningful until the end of the season, and then you go off and play your club football, this isn't going to change. And the Meaths of the world, Kildare might come back for a couple of seasons now, right? And unless there's a massive investment in the teenagers who are playing football in Kildare, they're still going to be miles behind where the Dubs are in a decade. They have a good crop of players now who might just be able to stay with Dublin for 50 or 60 minutes. But
just on that comment that came in there, this whole thing is a vicious cycle. Joe Sheridan has probably just enough profile to make the back pages on a Tuesday morning because of what happened in 2010. For the profile required for this to become a media storm where you've got somebody coming out and these quotes like the testing football are actually making the back pages, you need to have that profile, or you need to be somebody who plays for a Dublin, a Kerry or a Mayo, who are never going to say it because they're in an ideal situation. Like you could list off many Longford players who would come out with these exact quotes, potentially stronger quotes, and they won't make the back pages because people are like, rightly so, they're like, who is this person? The person who's picking up the newspaper that morning, they see Joe blogs, they're like, they don't recognise that person.
No, precisely. I mean, this is a story going back years. Sure, Dennis Connaughton, the Longford manager, would have had this very point about 3 or 4 years ago in the newspapers. I mean, it's been a big story ever since then. Yeah. Right, let's move on. We're talking football, and we're going to get Graeme Hunter's thoughts on everything that's going on in La Liga, in particular the Coutinho deal, what it means for Barcelona, and the return of the arch villain at Atletico Madrid. First, though, on last night's Off the Ball, the BBC's South American football correspondent Tim Vickery was talking to Joe and Kevin about Nike's role in the Coutinho to Barcelona deal. Have a listen.
Remember, Nike did their homework, but they tried first with basketball as a global game. That didn't work. They saw it was football, and they saw that they really needed Brazil. This was in 96, 97. That they needed Brazil because Brazil were so globally popular, everyone's second favourite team. And it was just a year later that the relationship with Barcelona started. They saw that Barcelona had the potential to be everyone's second favourite team worldwide. And there you got a team that, unlike Brazil, that play now and again, and a great deal during World Cups, you get Barcelona playing twice a week. So if you have the world's most popular national team and the world's most popular club, there's an obvious synergy that you want to develop there. And, it's done very well for them with Brazilian star after Brazilian star after Brazilian star at Barcelona. That works on all kinds of levels. It works commercially. It also works in the minds of the next level of the next generation of Brazilians growing up. Because, when and Liverpool fans got very angry with me at the time when I said that, when Barcelona come in for Coutinho, he will want to go. But that's so obvious from and we're on a Brazilian TV show here. We actually laughed at an article on 442 in magazine trying to explain this to an English public because it seemed so obvious from a Brazilian perspective. Because if you're Coutinho, you are then placing yourself in a line of succession that starts with Romario and goes all the way to Neymar, with lots of glorious names in the middle.
Graeme Hunter, good morning to you.
Jared, good morning.
I mean, what Tim Vickery says obviously makes tons of sense. The other big point is that Barcelona offers a bit more money when it comes to all this and a bit more glory, and you also get the opportunity then, it seems, to be perhaps eventually the successor to Leo Messi at some point.
Yeah, if you look, there's broad strokes there, and both of you are accurate. But if you want to paint the fine detail, first of all, if we're talking about momentum for this to happen, I think it became clear over the last fortnight, and it was emphasised yesterday when we attended what was a slightly mundane press conference. Poor old Phil, apart from his hamstring injury, which is going to keep him out 20 days, was obviously a little bit overwhelmed, a little bit knackered, and it was like the King and I with the March of the Siamese. There was kids everywhere and family everywhere. But what really became absolutely crystal clear from the Liverpool side, from Barca, and from Coutinho was that he drove this. He wanted now. And taking what you said and Tim said, if you want to use the word momentum, why not? Like crucial momentum. Coutinho, albeit that he's a family man, well-behaved, not like Neymar off the pitch, much more mature, he does have a strong will. And his will isn't to win the Champions League this season, evidently, because Liverpool have at least a shot. Stranger things have happened. He's given that up. He knows he can't win it with Barcelona. His eyes on the World Cup. That's the big prize. Why wouldn't you want to bed in, to move, to say, I'm settled, to have no last-minute hitches in May or June? Not just Coutinho, I'm not defending him, but any footballer will say, David Silva, for authoring his move to Manchester City, was castigated in the 2010 World Cup with Vicente Del Bosque and didn't play as much as he wanted to, and that festered for years, Ger. So that's one. And you throw in Nike going, one, I want a Neymar replacement at Barcelona. Irrespective of what position, how he plays, let's sell some sex. Let's put the Barca and Nike Brazil thing back together again, and let's do it now. You look at Barca's need to get the right player and to begin to replace Andres Iniesta and to bed this fella in promptly rather than them doing late business. And who knows, if Coutinho stays at Liverpool and something crazy happens and they win the Champions League, the price goes up. The momentum between the brand, the footballer, the club, and not the seller, let's exclude Liverpool from that, the momentum was almost irresistible.
The other point, I guess, in all this is the politics in Barcelona, which is always so important, that at the end of the summer, the board and the transfer committee were castigated widely because of their inability to get this deal done. And at that point, they made public the figure of 200 million was the figure that Liverpool had offered them Coutinho at the very last minute. Now, Liverpool denied that they made any offer in the summer, that they weren't going to sell him at all. But that's why they're able today to say in the papers, oh, we got this at a reduced rate, lads. This is a great deal for us.
No, there's another reason, Ger. There's another reason that I'm absolutely confident of. Number one, there was a lot of Pinocchio imitators at the Camp Nou in summer and over the last couple of months. And until there's some sort of binding law in Spain or perhaps across the globe that a cattle prod will be used on a football executive unless they tell the truth all the time, then they won't do that. Where there has been a reduction in terms, and what Jordi Mestre, the vice president of Barcelona, was talking about yesterday, is that one way or another, whether it's in hard cash or whether it's in giving up bonuses and reducing salary pretensions, Coutinho has put a big seven-figure sum into this deal. So the PR, the blah blah that was issued about last-minute offers, I back you. There was a lot of tosh spoken. There was a lot of people trying to pull the wool over Barca fans' eyes, socios, members, paying members, shareholders, if you like. There was a lot of absolute nonsense spoken. Right now, Barca, while playing cute and saying, well, we've agreed with Liverpool that we can't tell you how much money we've saved, Jordi Mestre turned to Coutinho yesterday and said, thank you for the financial sacrifice you've made in making this deal happen. And I don't think he means lowering the wages that he's on at Liverpool, maybe lowering the wages that he wanted at Football Club Barcelona, putting some money of his own into the deal. And remember, Ger, Mascherano gave up 7 figures on his salary just in his desire to be at the Camp Nou, even though Pep Guardiola was telling him, you ain't going to play that much, fella. There are certain moments when players say, I'll tell you what, I'm rich enough that I'll make this happen.
Graeme, on terms of the branding thing and coming back to what Tim Vickery was saying there a moment ago, there seems to be a weird middle ground here, and Coutinho, for him to be a successful brand for Barcelona Football Club, needs to be branded as the next something. And it seems that they're not quite certain whether or not he needs to be the next Iniesta or the next Lionel Messi.
Yeah, listen, I buy your idea that there are marketing men thinking like that, but free grown-ups like us who live and prosper because of the beauty of sport should be able to put that in a sock drawer until, next April Fool's Day. If people want to brand him, that's fine. He did what clever footballers do, and he immediately disassociated himself from Neymar when he was asked for comparisons. Can you make people forget about? I mean, he's not Neymar. He's not anybody else. Is he a reasonable playing? And let's leave marketing and branding alone. Is he a reasonable playing facsimile of Andres Iniesta? He's a reasonable facsimile. Can he do some of the things that Barcelona will cry over when Andres Iniesta finally retires, or when his current this season ratio of appearances drops back to the last 3 seasons? Iniesta started 71 of 130 La Liga games. That is going to go down as a ratio because he's 33, and because he has the type of physique that does take knocks badly. It does have an increasing repetition of muscle strains. Coutinho has a similar brain and said immediately, when he was asked to talk about Messi or about Suarez or about Neymar, there were warm words. The minute he was asked about Iniesta, he said, he's a genius, and I'm here to learn from him. And quite clearly, although Coutinho plays on the right for the national team, often at least in midfield, he's right-footed. By and large, although Iniesta's two-footed, he's a right-footed player playing on the left. There is a fit. There is a reasonable assumption that as he learns and develops, Coutinho will be able to not only anchor the midfield, but allow Dembele to play up front in the three, which Barcelona haven't been able to cope with a three-man midfield. They haven't had the ball retention, the athleticism. They've looked vulnerable when they try it. They've often this season played four men in midfield and supplanted that with Messi dropping back five and one or other of the two fullbacks six. A six-man midfield in such a short time after Pep Guardiola showed that with the right three, you can play a 4-3-3. Coutinho will change over months Barcelona's formation and their ability to go back to playing 4-3-3 when they choose to. And I think that if you imagine a Barcelona with Coutinho playing either left midfield, with Rakitic and Busquets, or Paulinho, name your other two, playing right midfield instead of, say, Rakitic with Busquets and Iniesta, and Dembele, Suarez and Messi up front, then perhaps Griezmann in the summer. Again, going back to the word momentum, you can see a more credible, more athletic, a younger and more talented football club, Barcelona, because right now they don't rank, I don't believe, irrespective of their gap at the top of La Liga, in the top 3, 4, 5 teams in Europe in terms of potential, in terms of momentum, in terms of excellence. They're very, very good in Spain because of a particular change in tactics. Are they elite? No, and they want to get back there.
Has this... So you take Neymar out and you put Dembele and Coutinho in the squad. Do you feel like they've improved? Is the balance of power still, it would have been a better team with Neymar in it? How have they come out of that whole transfer?
First of all, the two incumbents have a lot to prove, Jer. I mean, Dembele, I think, is more overpriced than Coutinho has been. Coutinho, I think, argues that he's proven he's the right man. Dembele has this thing about fantastic skill. There was an urgency because of the embarrassment of Neymar, and he has a dramatic amount to learn before he's even asked to prove his worth or prove that there's a balance like there used to be when it was Neymar, Suarez, Messi up front, Jer. But both of them have questions to answer. Coutinho looks the ideal fit as a man for Football Club Barcelona in that settled, balanced, professional, doesn't drink, doesn't party, has a partner, young kid. It kind of looks like he's also, multilingual. He's a guy who is a decent representative for any investment you put in it, whether that's your sponsor or your kit manufacturer or the coach. He leaves Liverpool, I think, with the affection of the squad in the way that Neymar left Barcelona with his teammates wishing he was still there. He looks like a good fit, but it's Barcelona. And I think we can argue the same about maybe Manchester United, Bayern Munich, Real Madrid, for sure. You look like the right guy. And there was a microcosm of it yesterday. He sat there as the second most expensive footballer of all time. He should have lit up the press conference. And the second question was directly to Jordi Mestre, the vice president, and it was about, will you still have money for Griezmann in the summer? How on earth have you found all this dosh when you said you were blah, 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 blah? And Mestre, after about 4 or 5 minutes of tolerance, said, listen, let's respect the fact that Coutinho is here. And Coutinho was sort of looking at the table going, well, what's going on? Why is the second question not to me? There's a pressure, is what I'm arguing, Jer, and the pressure will come in terms of the radio stations, the televisions, the commentary, the absent fans. Where Barcelona are averaging about sort of 60,000-ish at the moment. There was 54, 55,000 against Levante. That's back to the Rijkaard days when he took over.
Why?
There's a pressure. So the balance you're asking about is both Coutinho and Dembele need to answer the questions.
Where's the pressure coming from? Why is there this pressure when they're running away with La Liga? They still have Leo Messi. Like, when you're saying they're not in the top 5 teams or just about touching the 5th best team in Europe at the moment, what has them so far behind everybody? A failure to buy well, to plan well, a failure to develop well. They're in mid-project, I think. If you look at the way in which, if you try to gradually replace footballers like Dani Alves, like Xavi, like Carlos Puyol,
It takes time. And they've gradually begun to get some of them right. Ter Stegen has found his absolute best form right now. Umtiti this season until injury has begun to look like, you can say, the memory of Carlos Puyol is put aside because. But if you look at the midfield, the whole idea of the balance of Football Club Barcelona was that they never lost the ball, that they pressed teams high up, that they, once they had the ball, the passing was devastating. Teams have been able to run past them. Teams have been able to outpass them. Teams have been able to bully them until this season. What you're looking at right now is a complete change of ideal. Sometimes this season, Ger, there's been one man up front and it's been a semi-injured Suarez. And therefore, the balance in midfield, the teamwork ethic, the vision of the coach have all been an upgrade on the last 6-7 months of Luis Enrique. They look more solid. They look more dependable. Are they elite in terms of being able to burn off other teams? I don't think so. And if anybody goes back to the Clásico just before Christmas, the first thing to look at is Real Madrid's mistakes. If you look at the Juventus game, there were 7 key players missing when Juventus were beaten 3-0 at the Camp Nou. Barcelona are better. Barcelona are a threat to certain teams. Do they compare in level of football, depth of squad with Paris Saint-Germain, Manchester City? Would they outright guaranteed beat Real Madrid when Real Madrid were at their best? How do they shape up against Bayern Munich? Could they unpick a José Mourinho Manchester United? These are really big questions. They're aiming to get there. They might get there next season. They may even win the Champions League this season. I'm not discarding that. Are they where they need to be right now, irrespective of the gap at the top of the La Liga? No, they're not.
Let's talk about the bloody chaos that happens wherever Atletico Madrid's new star signing and the returning hero Diego Costa goes. A goal and 2 bookings, and I mean that's kind of Diego Costa's entire career in microcosm.
Yeah, 2 goals in 2 games, though he scored a really nippy goal in the Copa del Rey. It was interesting before he got sent off to watch the team learning about Costa and Costa learning about the team, because things have changed a little bit. And he looks light, he looks powerful, he looks like a boxer. He's lost 8 or 9 kilograms at least, but the temper, the demands on his teammates haven't gone down. And he was in this game where they win 2-0 into a Madrid derby. One, it's feisty from the start. Getafe have come out there saying, we're going to try and bully you, then outplay you. And Costa's going like, well, I'm having none of this. And wait a second, where's the ball? Why is nobody feeding my runs? So you can see the thermometer going up and up and up. There were a couple of clashes, as there were in the cup game too. He almost took the referee by the throat. There was a moment when a second challenge had gone into him, had gone unbooked. There'd been problems with the referee's idea about booking, and Costa went running at him, and then just put his hands behind his back, and his lazy eye showed that little bit like, oh, I know I've done the wrong thing here. Thermometer going up, the temperature rising. He gets his goal. His booking is an outright booking. His booking might even be a red card. When he goes and celebrates his goal, I'm not saying the referee did the wrong thing, but I wish the FIFA laws would allow a fella like Costa to score a goal in a new stadium, homecoming for the team, and then run up a couple of... He runs towards the fans, at which point I don't think he's going to get booked. And they've designed the stadium, so the architect should be suspended for the next game, not Costa. They've designed the stadium that there's a couple of steps leading up, so he doesn't actually go into the crowd. He just goes up the little footsteps and hugs the crowd, and it's not a booking. It's not a book. Not ref. FIFA. That's not a booking.
I agree.
It's great to see the whole Diego Costa, it wasn't me face back in professional football again. But the thing about his time at Chelsea was that he played so close to the line, quite often above the line. And now he's got this added incentive of being completely in love with the club that is Atletico Madrid. So that's going to push him further beyond the line again. And I know it's quite humorous now, but this could become a real problem for him at Atletico.
I think that's feasible. He's not a man who doesn't know control. If you look at his Atleti years, when they reach the Champions League, when they win the title, when they win the cup, there's that controlled menace. I think that in England, very quickly after he arrived at Chelsea, he began to phone Cholo Simeone and say, I'm not happy, get me out of here. You both know that the previous summer, there was a big bid made, and he thought he was going to get out of there. Some of what you saw in the Premier League was him going, I'm not going to be here very long. I'm going to control myself a little bit less. Oh, and by the way, the referees allow a lot more physical challenges, so I'm going to give back everything that I've got, and I'm going to drop my guard a little bit. He's not going to be an angel here. Don't mistake my message. But I think for as long as him and Cholo Simeone are getting on, there's a mutual respect. Simeone was a similar animal. Don't forget, it was compete at or beyond the edge of the lines for Cholo Simeone, but he managed to contain it sufficiently to have a very bountiful career. And there's a mutual respect between the two men. I think that teaching process will help a little bit while Costa's here. But will he be booked and sent off? Yes, he will. Will it spoil what he's bringing to Atleti? Right now, I don't think he's a man out of control, a man who won't be able to pull back and sort of surf that menacing potential rather than let it, wipe him out.
Graeme, I wanted to ask you about the José Mourinho, Antonio Conte spat, and just how long this has been in gestation and what you make of it, really, because frankly I find it kind of entertaining. I know that we're all supposed to be appalled and disgusted and repulsed by the fact that two grown men despise each other and are honest about their hatred for each other, but I know the football purists are a little bit like, oh my God, this is disgusting. But anyway, what do you think?
No, let's have them on the show and let's torment them in that case, because anybody who says that it's not entertaining, anybody who says that this generically isn't a central part of what's attracted to sport is either stupid or a liar. If you'd rather that people didn't use words like senile dementia, if you'd rather that Mourinho didn't falsify what Conte was initially banned for, and Mourinho doesn't go insult asterisk, he was actually found innocent. Okay, so there have been injudicious moments in the spat, but number one, I think if you play with fire you get burned. It's been a long time coming for José Mourinho. He was called out by Pep Guardiola in 2011 in the semi-final of the Champions League in that brilliant press conference, that 2 minutes 45 rock and roll press conference where Guardiola said, "Where's the camera, José? This is to you." Blah blah blah. Okay. Mourinho's a Diego Costa. He knows where the line is and he deliberately goes beyond it. He knows it has an effect. It's been a successful tool for him. Doesn't make Conte the Avenger, the Lancelot, but it does mean that somebody has said, I know where your weak spots are, I'm going to go after you, and I'm not going to be held back by the threat of being banned or being fined. And Conte's going, bring it on. That's combat. Some of the terminology, particularly using senile dementia, that's not particularly funny. It's not particularly judicious or tasteful. The actual spat, it's not manufactured in the case of Conte. I think Mourinho's been caught out a little bit. And therefore, given that this is how Mourinho has dished it out to people throughout his managerial career, I say bring it on.
Is it a harbinger of the beginning of the end for Mourinho? I mean, do we look back in 3/6 months' time and go, he escalated to a point that he kind of lost control and that was the clear sign? Or is this actually him bedding down now for, actually, I'm going to be here for quite a while and this is how it's going to be and everybody better get used to that?
Well, let's be clear. Factually, I don't know. You're asking for an opinion. Not for the first time in my life I have strong opinions, certainly when it surrounds José Mourinho. I don't think he's particularly enjoying himself. I don't think he's particularly enjoying life in Manchester. I think that second season kick-on, when traditionally Mourinho's been at his most powerful, is not something that we're witnessing right now. Are they competitive? Yes. Might they, with recalibration, be candidates to win the Champions League? Yes. So let's not get too hoity-toity about him right now. But if you're asking me about a countdown, and there's always a countdown with José Mourinho, my opinion is he deliberately used people who will say what he wants them to say to fly this idea about Unai Emery sacked and Mourinho at Paris Saint-Germain. Is it something that might tempt him, might take him away from United, in my opinion? Yes, but you can paint another scenario. Things are difficult for Zidane at Real Madrid. Before Zidane was appointed almost exactly 2 years ago, Florentino Perez asked Mourinho to come back. That's an unscratched itch. If Paris Saint-Germain were to put Real Madrid out of the Champions League and the League and the European Cup were gone pre-spring, Zidane's future at the Bernabeu would be not impossible to imagine, but it would be open to conjecture. And at that stage, if Mourinho's people were to contact Florentino, or Florentino were to contact Mourinho's entourage, then that ticking clock that you hinted at, then maybe we need to pay more attention to that.
It seems like a very strange thing for Jose Mourinho to want, because the itch that he wants to scratch that you mentioned there kind of seems slightly similar to the idea of taking over at Manchester United and finally getting his hands on that job. That whole lust for that job kind of feels similar to me now, for the lust to go back and try and do a better job at Real Madrid. He's
a calculating man, so let's underline that we're talking about hypothesis. He's the Manchester United manager. The hypothesis about Real Madrid, you can start to make compare and contrasts. Did things go as well at Madrid as he wanted them to? No. Largely, was he defeated overall by Pep Guardiola? Yes. Was he hugely frustrated about not taking out his wish for revenge on Barcelona for not appointing him? His anger at not being the guy who coached Messi and Xavi and Iniesta at their very best. Did he get what he wanted out of that situation? No. Did he leave losing the cup final at the Bernabeu to Diego Costa and Cholo Simeone? Did he leave sooner than he'd wished to? You have to say those things are all still big factors. Manchester United, what's troubling him at the moment? I know that he doesn't particularly love the weather. I know that he's a little bit frustrated that he doesn't get his will done in terms of ins and outs. Who's in the way there? Well, not just Ed Woodward, but the owners too. There's a structure at Manchester United. You might criticise it. You might say it's not as good as in the days of Sir Alex Ferguson and David Gill. But there is a structure, and Mourinho is at least frustrated by it. He's expressed that himself. Look at Manchester, look at Real Madrid. Zidane may well stay. Zidane has earned the right to stay past one season where, even if he only won the 3 trophies that he's won since August, in general football terms, the right to stay is absolutely established. Would that happen if the European Cup was a fracasso for Real Madrid? No, I think it's legitimate to say that at that point there would be a potential for a man like Mourinho to come back. Now, what would he get? He would get a second shot at Barcelona with Messi older, Iniesta in the last season of his career, and Xavi gone. Attractive? Maybe. No Iker Casillas, with whom he fell out with so badly. No Pepe, with whom he fell out so badly. Cristiano Ronaldo's power at the Bernabeu hugely diminished. Is there a football director at Real Madrid that might get in his way? No. Would he begin to get the signings that he wanted? Direct communication with the president rather than owners in America who don't know anything about football and are only interested in the profit margin rather than the glory. Am I painting a picture that in the scenario where Paris Saint-Germain have knocked Real Madrid out, Mourinho's personal sort of calculator is going, wow, I like those odds. I like that idea. You don't buy that?
Yeah, I do. Graeme, Happy New Year to you. Thanks a million, man.
And you, lads.
I love the conspiracy theories that we get to indulge at this point. Like, I don't know what's going on with Mourinho, and I don't know where it ends up, but you can see the allure. The grass is always greener, right?
That's the point. As in, that's why I think he wouldn't go back to Real Madrid. As in, first of all, he's been there, and he knows exactly the shade of green that the grass is at Real Madrid. But also,
we know. Pep's dead.
Yeah,
Pep is. I look across and there's Pep again. Like.
That's a fair point. I will accept that, but this notions of grandeur that he had about Manchester United just seems very similar, like this sleeping giant almost, which you can't really consider Real Madrid because they won the Champions League last season, but they will get to that point if
he just needs one more Champions League to be great. He just needs one more to be like truly great.
If he did it with United, then it's
that would be amazing.
But there is more.
Look likely, does it?
I think his best chance of winning a Champions League is with PSG, and the PSG job could be coming up relatively soon.
It's hard to know.
First of all, he will have a happy, I would say a happy camp, but then we've seen what's happened despite the fact that they're killing everybody in Liga this season, like little things between Dani Alves and Cavani and the likes of that. But I think Jose is just happy when he's winning. When there is a league title chalked down, everything else kind of falls into place with him.
I would say it's more likely that the next manager of Real Madrid wins a Champions League before PSG do. Just because there's like that accepted, received tradition of the team winning the competition, whereas everybody at PSG is massively overpaid. So everybody's coming into work going, I'm guaranteed to earn between 25 and 50/100 million over the next 4 or 5 years.
What about ambition? What about the ambition?
What if I don't actually try a leg today? I'm still getting paid.
You're still going to get paid at Real Madrid.
Yeah, but they know how to deal with that. They've always had that.
They've always had the
best
culture.
players in the world.
But and also just to support your argument a little bit more, even though I don't necessarily agree with it, is that you get a last hurrah Cristiano Ronaldo, somebody who's just going to play above and beyond for as hard as he can for the next 2 years.
And he can play 15 games a season or 20 games a season, and they can be the Champions League, like the important away games in the Champions League or the important home games in the Champions League. You don't even need to play him against Ludogorets if they ever make it.
Sure, but I think PSG aren't as far away from the gritty culture as you might believe. I think a couple of years ago, I think you're right. But I think now, excellence breeds excellence. Neymar didn't move there to earn money. Well, he did, a little bit. But Neymar certainly has competitive interest at heart when he makes that move to PSG.
Andy Dunleavy says, with all this talk of Mourinho leaving, who would you have to replace him? Give it a Giggsy.
Give it Giggsy till the end of the season, really. That's kind of the nuclear button pressed every single time. Just that video will just be on loop. The Nostradamus that is that Manchester United fan.
Here's the thing, maybe just don't give it to somebody who has just come off a failure, or who you just know. So don't just go for, Van Gaal, he's famous, or, David Moyes. Alex Ferguson thinks he's a good guy. Oh, Mourinho. I mean, didn't Chelsea just sack him? Give it to somebody else. Look beyond that little pot of managers to try and find somebody.
Most managerial careers end in failure these days, don't they?
Totally, yeah. But if they were to try and find a manager, I'm sure they would look for somebody like Carlo Ancelotti, who has had success wherever he goes with his not great style of football.
Diego Simeone is obviously the guy they would want. And I think Simeone, after this season, will be like, screw it, it's done. We've moved into the Wanda. We've reached the end of the road. We cannot compete with.
He gets Diego Costa back. I can see Diego Costa every day arriving into training, and Simeone's like, I'm sticking around, baby. I want to see what madness I've unleashed.
Just wants to be a voyeur of it.
I can see Griezmann sticking around, going, look what I can do. That guy, I'm going to stick him on you if you do anything to me next time. What a partnership that'd be.
Maybe, but I think Simeone's already had the Diego Costa roller coaster. Of course, he had to let go a little bit too soon. He's had all that. He's done. He's checked every single thing on the bucket list with Atletico, except for, of course, winning the Champions League.
Michael Shelley says if Mourinho left, I'd give Luis Enrique a shot. I'd give Roy Keane a shot just to see what would happen.
Great player. Obviously, he's going to make a great manager at a top club.
That's exactly how it works. Right, let's move on. The very first Grand Slam of the tennis year begins in Melbourne next Monday. Andy Murray won't be there after withdrawing through injury. Luke Jensen, a two-time doubles major winner himself, was on speaking with Joe last night about the spate of injuries that tennis is suffering. Have a look.
Murray was really trying to avoid this surgery for a long time. He was trying to rehab the injury, and he's eventually succumbed to going under the knife. How worried are we about Andy Murray's career at 31 now?
I'm very worried. I mean, I have sources that are close to him that I don't want to honestly name that felt even a year ago, if he was ever going to retain that number one ranking, and he spent so much physical and emotional energy to get to that number one spot. He plays a very physical game. He defends, compares to the offensive firepower or just tactical offense that someone like Roger Federer plays with, trying to keep the point short. Murray has to really run around and defend, very similar to Djokovic. Murray's 30 years old now. And remember, he's had back issues. He's had work done on his back. Now it gets into this area. If you don't have your back, your hips, your joints, you're in big trouble. So we may be seeing the end of big Andy Murray.
Yeah. I mean, Murray himself said, when you look at my hip on an MRI scan, it really doesn't look good. But he said most tennis players' hips don't look good.
It all depends on what shows. Of course, if you went into Roger Federer's hips or knees, you're going to see wear and tear. Everything comes down to, does your body react to certain things? I mean, some people have tears and some people have pulls, but the body reacts and covers it up, and there's scar tissue. In Andy's case, it's really showing that all the stretching that he does, all the rehab, it's just not, he had to push it all the way to this end. The great thing for him is if his surgery is successful, he'll be ready for Wimbledon. He's got a little time here to rehab it. The clay court season's honestly kind of in the spring, so he's got a little time to work. He is 30. He looks at a Federer who's 36, sees a Serena who's 36. There's a lot of positives in there if the hip and the surgery can really play out through in a positive way.
All right, so my time as a Buffalo Bills bandwagon fan has come to an end. They lost on Sunday, so I've hopped right off that bandwagon and hopped onto another one. And I'm proud to announce this morning, ladies and gentlemen, that I've been a lifelong fan of the Jacksonville Jaguars since yesterday. And there are a number of reasons you should get on this bandwagon with me. The first reason is their quarterback, Blake Bortles. He's this guy. Now, Blake Bortles, you can compare him to the likes of Tom Brady, to Aaron Rodgers, to Peyton Manning, to Joe Montana. He's like all the greats. He's like them in the sense that he is indeed also an NFL quarterback. He's different to them in the sense that he is a terrible NFL quarterback. On Sunday, for example, he threw the ball, he passed it for 87 yards. He ran the ball for 88 yards. Therefore, this is an NFL quarterback who is better at doing the things that NFL quarterbacks don't do than the things that NFL quarterbacks do. It's incredible, really, that they've made it this far in the competition, that they're in the last 8 in the NFL, right into the divisional round. In fact, I think all Jaguars fans, much like myself, are quite surprised that they're here. This is a franchise, really, so devoid of competitive gusto. They don't really care about winning, that they actually installed hot tubs in their stadium. They really don't expect to be involved in any sort of competitive thing at this stage of a season. But they basically said to themselves, our football team is so underwhelming, we better give people something better to do when they actually come and watch our football team. But some people in the Jacksonville Army don't even respect the basic principles of a hot tub. Take this picture, for example. There is a person in there wearing jeans. So if you're going to have water-based activities in your stadium, at least have some decorum, and a no denim rule in your hot tubs should be a basic decorum rule. So you fail in that regard, Jacksonville Jaguars, in having good hot tub rules, but you don't fail in other areas. One thing you certainly don't fail in is in the mascot stakes, because I love the Jacksonville Jaguars mascot. That is not the Jacksonville Jaguars mascot. We will bring you to Jacksonville. There he is. That is Jackson DeVille. And Jackson DeVille, I shit you not, is one of the most divisive figures in the NFL. Take this headline, for example, from 1999. Jackson DeVille, Steelers dislike obnoxious mascot. So what on earth could poor Jackson DeVille have done to rile the Steelers, of course this weekend's opponents, so much? Well, take a look at this. This is a little snippet from the article. During one timeout in last year's Steelers game, DeVille brought a life-size stuffed doll of Pittsburgh quarterback Cordell Stewart onto the field and began beating and stomping it, only a few feet away from the Steelers' offensive huddle. And there's more. Here's more from that article, another screenshot. During another timeout, he went over to the Steelers bench holding a Steeler rug he got from a fan. He used the rug to wipe his armpits and other parts of his anatomy, said Steelers coach Bill Cowher after the game. It is the villain's antics that have been banked in my mind. So dressing room wall material being provided by a mascot. Incredible stuff for an incredible franchise. And the last reason, the most important reason you should hop on this bandwagon with me and support the Jacksonville Jaguars is because of the Jaguars fans. They are amazing. Last week we showed you pictures of the Bills Mafia jumping through tables and breaking furniture and setting themselves on fire. Well, look at those lunatics there in the tailgate party before last Sunday's game, playing dominoes. I'm not sure if I'm able to keep up with these Jacksonville Jaguars fans. They're just nutcases, quite frankly. And have a look at this video. They go even further.
Pick up your cans, watch the photographer!
They'd want to calm down a little bit. I'm not sure if I'm able to handle jogging around slowly in a circle, high-fiving people before drinking 200 mils of Bud Light, but I'm going to sure as hell try, because I'm a Jacksonville Jaguars fan. I'm on the bandwagon. I'm going to get off the bandwagon this week when they inevitably lose in a bitter manner to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I'm going to pick a new team to support next week. But hey, anything is better than being a Buffalo Bills fan for a week.
Jaguar.
Yeah.
You have to change the pronunciation of the name.
I know. Jaguar is what we say on this side of the Atlantic.
It is, yeah.
They should spell it Jagwar.
Jaguar. Yeah, or they could just pronounce it properly, of course.
Of course they could, but, you know...
The other thing is that they've been called the Saxonville Jaguars this year. And it's like, what the Yanks don't know is Saxon is like a term for English. Mm-hmm. And of course, Saad Khan, the owner, wants to move the franchise to London because obviously it goes from being worth whatever it's worth, $1.5 billion to 3.5 or 5 or 6 billion, because suddenly you own Europe and you own football in Europe.
But are they called Saxonville because of Kelly
Sax,
Campbell and how amazing they are in the defensive? I actually saw the Jacksonville Jaguars this year. They played Baltimore Ravens, which looked like an absolutely woeful game on paper. It was in Wembley, and it turns out that the Jaguars are actually quite good.
Yeah, they hammered them.
Yeah, I'm a fan.
Like they beat them 40-0 or something.
They destroyed him. Leonard Fournette had one of the greatest running back games I've ever seen from a rookie. But Chad Kahn is a great guy, actually.
He is a good guy, yeah.
Yeah, he's...
he owns Fulham as well.
Yeah, something like 10 refugee families or something. He sorted them to fly down to Florida at the weekend and watch the Bills game.
That's right,
which was a pretty cool touch.
And he got endless amounts of shit on it from Twitter for like not
NFL fans, no way.
Yeah, it was great. So fair play to him. Right, we want to play you this from last night. It was, I think in the news round, the lads were talking about the Martin O'Neill contract situation and how they'd been in touch with the FAI. Have a look.
We got onto the FAI today.
Yeah.
Okay. Because this happened around the Everton job. This happened around the West Ham job.
Yeah.
And now it's happening around the Stoke job, where Martin O'Neill is one of the bookies' favourites for the vacant position.
Yeah.
Which is kind of, if you put yourself in Martin O'Neill's position for a second, you might think to yourself, do you know what? I'm being linked with all these jobs. I'm just going to do an interview somewhere, or even release a statement if I don't want to have to do an interview and talk about the Denmark game, which would inevitably happen. But release a statement, just distancing myself from these jobs, saying I'm committed to the Irish job. Or hey, I know this is a crazy thought, sign the contract. So we got onto the FAI today just to ask a few questions. Has O'Neill actually signed the contract yet? Was a question. Has there been any official request or contact from Stoke City? That's not how these things work, but we asked anyway.
Yeah.
Roy Keane. Has Roy Keane spoken to the FAI? Are there any talks, anything? A phone call, a text from JD to RK? And has Roy Keane been approached about taking a position at any club? The reply to all of the above and a few other questions was, we won't be making any comment on the management team right now.
Right.
So, fair enough. But it certainly doesn't seem the contract has been signed. They would release that news.
I didn't know that. I wasn't listening outside when you said that to me before, really, because I was like to concentrate. But it's the statement's kind of leading in my eyes. Would it be? No? Do you not think?
We won't be making any comment on the management team right now.
Yeah, possibly. But
usually
there's no comment to be made because essentially the contracts have been agreed.
But you'd think
that's what's been said in the past.
You'd think the official response would include that little nugget of information. A contract has been agreed, but until such time as it's signed. If not that.
It's almost if it's kind of the best thing to say. There's no comment, isn't it? No, we've no comment to make on anything. That's it. But just I don't know. There's something a little bit extra, I think, within that.
Do you? Okay.
I don't know. Well,
there's a vacuum, so it allows us to be paranoid.
Okay, one of the reasons why we're talking about the Martin O'Neill contract is, of course, because Stoke City were beaten at the weekend and knocked out of the FA Cup by Coventry City. And I'm delighted to say that Coventry City captain Michael Doyle is with us on Skype. Good morning to you. How you doing?
Morning, lads. How's it going? You okay?
Yeah, pretty good. I may as well start by asking you about the Martin O'Neill situation. He's somebody you know relatively well, having spent some time under him at Celtic.
Yeah, I was obviously started off at Celtic, and I was more of a reserve team player at the time when I was there. But you're obviously, 2 or 3 years around of him being there in a very successful spell.
Yeah, unbelievably successful. How much interaction would the reserve team players have had with somebody like O'Neill at that time?
Yeah, to be honest, he could come to the games and things like that. He knew everybody. We sort of trained pretty close. But he was pretty hands-on in a sense when he was there with the first team. But probably like ourselves, you had more interaction with him with reserve if you were at reserve games, or if you had a loan move or something like that. It wasn't a lot, but when he spoke to you, you certainly sort of listened. He got your attention.
As an Ireland football fan now, do you think he'd be good for Stoke? Do you think he could do the two jobs at once? Do you think that would be the end of him at Ireland if he took the Stoke job?
I do think he'd be very good for Stoke. I think he's just probably exactly what they need right now, to probably keep them in the Premier League. Or personally, I think it's probably their best chance of staying up, because what he is really good at, I think, is galvanising people, getting a group together and getting results and lifting a club. And I think Stoke right now at this moment in time, after playing against them on Saturday, that's exactly what they need. Whether he could do the two jobs, I don't know, but I think he could certainly do probably both up till the summer, and and can probably reassess them with the Stoke situation then if he wanted to. But I don't think that will happen. I personally think he'll make a decision on what he wants to do, and he'll do one job and fully commit to it.
It was written up in all the newspapers at the weekend and in all the websites that it was a massive shock that you guys won, but I suspect that you probably felt like you guys had a chance because you're in really good form at the moment in the league and you're up against a team that isn't in great form. And so did you have much confidence heading into the game at the weekend?
Yeah, I think, to be honest with you, when the draw was made, that they were on a bit of a bad run, and we knew going into the game, you know, they were obviously, the pressure had really built on them. But listen, it was a good game on Saturday. Both teams tried to win it. You know, they had some chances. They were unlucky, and when things aren't going for you, we got a little bit of luck, but we played well. You know, there's obviously a good few divisions apart, and we give them a game. As I say, it could have gone either way. Fortunately for us, we come out on top.
When you're looking at a game like that, obviously, as Ger mentioned, you're in pretty good league form and you're hoping to get promoted. You're in a very good position. So you look at Stoke, and the excuse could be made for Stoke, oh, well, they're trying to avoid relegation, so they're not focusing that much on the FA Cup. But I presume they're at the higher echelons of Coventry right now, they're thinking about promotion big time. So you could also say, from your perspective, that the league is more important than the Cup as well, because promotion is key, especially when it comes to the bottom line. So I don't think that argument really stacks up, that Stoke didn't have the motivation, because essentially the league is unbelievably important for both of the clubs this season.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, in the game Saturday, you know, it was a typical cup game. I think anybody that was there was tackles going in. There's two very committed sides, you know, and you know, Stoke, you know, they had a lot of the ball, and you know, they dominated at times, but you know, we were resolute, as a lot of lower league sides are, what you have to be when you get them results. And I think our form of late obviously carried us into the game. It gave us a little bit of confidence, and as I say, with their form as well, with things not going their way, when they're missing a couple of chances, they're probably thinking it's going to be another one of them days. So you know, fortunately for us, we got the result in the end.
Mark Hughes, I think, was the manager who submitted an official complaint to the Premier League recently, or maybe it was West Brom actually, just about the pile-up of fixtures around the festive period. And I know Mark Hughes was complaining about it himself, and famously, of course, rested a lot of players for that Chelsea match. But you look at the amount of games that a Premier League team has played so far, and you look at the amount of games that you've played, I think 26 games in the league alone this season, along with a couple of more cup games, of course, to get to the third round. So again, there was almost a disadvantage from your perspective there, having had a tougher domestic campaign up until this point.
Yeah, I think for us, especially lower league players, it probably gets overlooked at times. I mean, you're playing constantly, you know, Saturday, Tuesdays, and you know, a lot of cups, Johnson Paints Cup, League Cup, FA Cup. But as well as that, it's the squad size as well that we have, especially with ourselves here at Coventry in League Two. And when we get an injury and things like that, you know, you're bringing in a young player, probably inexperienced, trying to make his way in football. So for us, it's certainly a lot different. And, you know, this last month, things have been brilliant for us, because we've missed 3 or 4 key players with long-term injuries, and we've had to bring in young kids, and thankfully for us, they've been able to come into the team and get us results along the way. I think Saturday we had 6 lads that had come through the academy that started in our team on Saturday, which is brilliant. Yeah, that played some part.
That's pretty amazing, because there's so few of the lower league clubs now who can actually afford to spend the time bringing players through, and maybe it's not always on purpose that players end up getting that opportunity at the lower league clubs. From your own perspective, you obviously played football all over England with a bunch of different, very experienced managers, and you've kind of seen firsthand how the football industry in England works. And at this stage of your career, are you interested in playing for another couple of seasons, or are you thinking about like getting involved as a coach? Like, what's your future career plans at this point?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I want to keep playing for as long as I can. I certainly want to go into coaching, and it's something I'm doing outside of football now at the minute. I mean, I do a little bit of coaching and that. It's certainly something I have my eye on, but I just want to play for as long as I can. You know, I've been very fortunate with injuries, and my fitness has held up. So if I can keep playing, I will. If when the day comes I have to stop, I'll hopefully be ready, and you know, the opportunity then will come to stay in football. That'd be great for me.
And it seems like a great club to be at this point in your career as well, because I think, was there a Check a Trade trophy game earlier on in the season where you were injured and you were helping out in the warm-up beforehand, and as Ger mentions as well, the amount of academy players that have come through at the club, so you've got to focus on youth there, and clearly people are pushing you towards coaching themselves, or allowing you to help out in the things like the warm-up when you're not actually available to play yourself.
Yeah, I mean that again, just very fortunate. You know, the manager, when I come in the summer and that, obviously spoke to me about, you know, what I want to do, and he said he wasn't promising anything, but he said to me, listen, if things go well and we work with each other well, you never know, there might be an opportunity there. So just when I didn't play in that Walsall game, they told me to come along, get a feel for things, get a little bit of experience on the other side of it. So it was a brilliant opportunity, and it was you know, delighted to take it up. And they say opportunities like that, it's just they're priceless.
When you're imparting that sort of knowledge onto your teammates and to the other academy players on your team, is there any sort of mirror image there from your time playing with the likes of Dennis Wise and Gary McAllister at all?
No, just, you know, them players are sort of special players, aren't they? The top Premier League players in that day when they played. And I would say, when you're around people like that, you know, Steve Staunton was here and people like that, you're just in awe of them because they're such good careers, and you try and learn off them. If they speak to you, you listen. And but as I say, when you're sort of around these people, you see the way they go about their business, the way they train every day, and you try to bring that on yourself. I've always sort of, them two, when I played them, they were old players. They were nearly 40 years of age, but they were the fittest every day, and they were probably the best in training every day. And I think that's sort of one thing I tried to take, was that, you know, the older you are, the more professional you have to be, and you kind of have to have good standards, because that's why you're probably at clubs like this, that the manager and that's what they want you to do, is pass it on to the younger players and try and help them along, give them the good habits and let them learn from you.
I wondered, like, did that attitude, was that something you had from the first time that you went to Celtic? Because you went to Scotland a little bit older than a lot of people would traditionally get into football. I mean, most Irish kids, certainly when you were coming through, would have come over at 15 or 16 and maybe felt like their opportunity was gone. But actually that probably isn't the right time for most kids to go, because it can happen too fast for them. You had like a proper look around what the real world is actually like, and I wonder if that actually helped you to kind of be determined from very early on to get as much out of this as you can. Yeah,
listen, I think everybody's different, but I'll be honest with you, if I'd have probably gone over to England at 15, 16, looking back now, I wouldn't have survived, you know. I wouldn't have had the confidence as a person, as a football player, to be over there. I don't think I would have gone under. I think I'd have been back in Ireland by the time I was 18, and just things worked out for a reason for me. I went away at 18 and I struggled a bit of homesickness and things like that, but I'd been sort of working on a building site for a couple of years, and just got the opportunity and I grasped it, and I went straight into an environment at Celtic where the academy and the youth system was really big. You know, they had about 30 odd players there, so it was an environment straight away of, it was sort of dog eat dog, trying to be the front of running and things like that. But they were all great lads, and little things like that helped me so well, because as much as it was a hard environment when you were training, when you came away from it, they were all just, you know, great fellas. We all mixed together as young lads and got on really well. So it was massive for me.
I think you played nearly 700 games. Is that about right?
706 now, I think. I made 700 there a few weeks ago, yeah.
Wow. So, and when something like that happens, do you actually have time in the middle of the season to think, Jesus, that's not bad?
But to be honest with you, you know, I've always not really missed a lot of games in my career, but I was never really one for counting. But when I after the game, when I played 699, I didn't know that. And I came out and I'd done an interview and they're saying that my next game was going to be my 700 game. You know, I was obviously very proud of that, and you know, I want to keep going. But you know, when people are saying it's, you know, a lot of appearances and things like that, you know, it's something to be proud of. Yeah.
Can you just take the camera out a little bit, because we can't actually see? Yeah, sorry. That's perfect. Yeah, sorry. So 700 games. Like, when you think about how many kids all around the world actually play football as kids growing up, kicking in their back garden, to have a career like that, like, you know, a lot of Irish football fans go, we have players who play in the Premier League and the Championship and who play for Ireland and play 20, 50, 100 games. But actually, football in Ireland needs people like you to go to England and play and be professional and just show that Irish football culture can be a viable way for kids to have a career.
Yeah, listen, everybody, you know, unfortunately, everybody's not going to play in the Premier League when they go to England. It's about carving out a career for yourself, you know. The Premier League now in England the last few years, the best league in the world. It's the best players in the world are playing. It's going to be so hard for any kid, especially coming from Ireland, that they're playing it week in, week out. But I think at the other side of it just goes to show if you're willing to work hard and that, and playing lower down, you can make a great living out of football lower down, and you make a great career for yourself as well. And the opportunities are there. You've just got to apply yourself in the right way, I think. And a lot of lads now in Ireland, I spoke to a couple of lads when I was at Sheffield United. The club were trying to sign, and they were talking about going to Premier League teams, and the club had asked me to give them a ring as being the captain of Sheffield United, and they were Irish lads hoping to have that pull. And I just remember speaking to a couple of them and sort of saying, without disheartening them too much, listen, the one thing about coming to a club like here at Sheffield, I said, is you'll get opportunities and you'll probably be involved with the first team, things like that. But when you go to a Premier League team, I said it's very hard, and the drop coming out of that, it's hard to deal with. Whereas if you probably went to a club like Sheffield United and made some first team appearances and played, you'd probably get that move to a Premier League club. So it can work the other way. But I think sometimes with kids and that, they get drawn in, and they probably always think they're going to be the one that will be the next player that will make it at, say, a Liverpool or Manchester United and that. But I just think it's so hard now for any young kid going over to these big clubs. But I suppose at the same time, with money and things like that have a big factor. But if it was my kid, I'll be totally honest with you, I would love to be able to help kids and that going away and advise them in a sense, and just be able to say to them about the bigger picture and going lower league in England and the opportunities that it can have for you, and if you're good enough, all these other things will come, with the money, and it's just about making a career for yourself, because as long as you're good enough and apply yourself in the right way, you will get these opportunities again long term.
Absolutely. One thing before we let you go, Michael, that we wanted to bring up was your Ireland cap in 2004, and we managed to stumble upon the Irish Daily Star the morning after that cap, which was that 1-0 win in Amsterdam, which I think a lot of people will remember. I think we actually had live commentary of it. I think you were commentating on it yourself that night, sure. Robbie Keane scores the winner. You come on, you get your cap that night. You come on for Andy Reid. What was that whole experience like? Brian Kerr obviously was the manager at the time, bringing you in, and I presume at the time, once you saw Brian Kerr come in, the encyclopedic knowledge that man has about Irish football and Irish players abroad, you always felt that there was a chance that if you played well enough, regardless of what club you were at, Kerr would give you a run in the team.
I don't know about that, to be honest with you. I never really played for Brian when I was younger in the youth levels, as I say. But I was always sort of pushing, and to be fair, I was delighted when I got called up and he gave me an opportunity. The one thing about that was, I remember we played a competition in London. They played against Nigeria, I think, in South Africa.
Yeah.
And I was kind of hoping to get a bit of a run in one of them games, because a lot of lads were getting 45 minutes and half an hour, and just to make a bit of an impression. And I just remember going to Holland. I was a bit of the odd man out, because I was probably the only person who hadn't had an opportunity. And that was a bit disappointing. But to be fair to Brian, I remember when we went over to Holland, they'd done a bit of shape and things like that, and he put me in, and I think it was a bit of a token gesture just to sort of keep me involved and make me feel part of it. But it was a brilliant night for Ireland that night. Holland were going to the Euros, I think, and lads went out at an unbelievable performance. I think I got about 5 minutes, which was great. Listen, it's a cap, but yeah, a little bit with Ireland for me was I just would have loved a bit more of an opportunity. But at the same time, I was in plenty of squads, and I obviously didn't make that much of an impression in a sense in training to nail down that opportunity. So great to get a cap, but a little bit bittersweet in a sense. I would have liked to get 20 minutes, half an hour, just to try and show what you're about, but not to be.
Did you guys stick around Amsterdam that night? Is that or do you fly straight home after the match?
I think there was a night out after. I don't think it was, the likes of myself. I obviously was only a younger lad, you just sort of stay in the background,
Yeah, we had a good night in Amsterdam that night. That's what I remember from that trip, most about everything.
Fair play.
I wanted just before, when you were talking about good advice to kids, when you were talking to the kids coming through at Coventry, they exactly had the same dreams as the Irish kids heading over. They all want to play Premier League football as well. How do you keep their feet on the ground? Is that something that you have a role in as the club captain as well at the moment? Yeah,
to be honest with you, it's one of them. I think again, Coventry's gone the other way, because Coventry for the last 5, 6, 7 years, they've obviously gone down through the leagues, but one thing they've consistently done through the years is bring young players through. So these young players now, you're having to hold them back a bit because they're chomping they all want to be the next one to get in the team. And you know, Coventry at the same time, when they were doing that every year, they were selling a player every year as well, and to good clubs. So you know, there's a real hunger here, I think, from young players that sometimes you have to tell them, listen, you know, take a step back, don't get ahead of your time. But at the same time, it's great to see as I say, it's a real hunger. But on the other scale of it there, you know, we had an Irish lad there just left a Christmas sign for our Bohemians, Dara Leahy. He was a really good player. Unfortunate here in his time not to probably have an opportunity, but he's gone back now to the League of Ireland. He sort of had a couple of loan moves out non-league, didn't get the opportunity, and you know, I had a little bit of a chat with Dara and just sort of said to him, listen, I think with the League of Ireland now, the way it's going, it's a big market with the attitude that he has. He was a top little professional for his age. I said, listen, you go back and just get games under your belt there. You'll be back over here in no time with your attitude and the type of character you are. I said, you just need the game time, and you'll get that now with Bohemians. When he went on loan to Nuneaton Borough over here, he didn't really get an opportunity. So I think going back now with Key Long at Bohemians, young side, done well last year. They're looking to bring youth through. I think he's a player for me that will, in the next 2 or 3 years, will do really well in the League of Ireland.
Would you have any interest in managing in the League of Ireland yourself as a pathway? I know you worked with Paul Cook at one point, and obviously he'd been successful in the League of Ireland before going back over to England.
Yeah, I'll tell you what manager he is. He's a brilliant manager. Cookie, he's unbelievable. I have to say, he's one of the best managers I've worked with in all my time in England. But yeah, listen, you know, once I'm finished playing, I want to get into management. I'd be more than happy to do, you know, anything like that if the opportunity came. Would love to be involved in football. You know, it's something that League of Ireland is something I watched when I was a young lad growing up. Used to go and watch St. Pat's quite a lot down in Inchicore with my dad and that, and then Shamrock Rovers now are up in Tala where I grew up. So yeah, I know a lot of League of Ireland fans and things like that. So yeah, it's something that would interest me definitely. All
right, good stuff, Michael. You've got MK Dons in the next round of the Cup. Best of luck with that. Who knows where that Odyssey will take you, and best of luck with the promotion charge as well.
Cheers, lads. Thanks very much. Really appreciate it.
Michael Doyle there, the club captain at Coventry after their win that got Mark Hughes sacked, and who knows, maybe gets Martin O'Neill the job. What do you think of this whole Martin O'Neill thing?
I agree with Michael there that this whole double jobbing thing is a lot easier than it really is. As in, it's like, oh, there's nothing to do until the end of the season. There kind of is. As in, you are taking your eye off the ball. If you want to go to a few championship games, if you want to be hands-on with the scouting. I know sometimes he's not necessarily hands-on. You don't actually see Martin O'Neill at a lot of championship games. But I'm sure he's got his finger on the pulse, and even just the way his brain is thinking in the background on a day-to-day basis about Ireland, about potential players, suddenly his brain is working in a different way and his mind is off the job. And that's a little thing for the money he's getting for managing Ireland. I presume you don't get paid for the Ireland job, you get your Stoke money. Yeah, but even like for the money he's getting paid, and if that doesn't happen, so say that the money isn't an issue, there is still kind of this notion of responsibility that you are the Irish manager. And I think certainly when we've got a year like this, where we don't have a huge game of consequence, despite the fact that the Nations League could be important in the end.
Yay, the Nations League, hooray.
Let's hope there isn't a game of consequence because we'll qualify without needing the Nations League. But two brains is better than one. Having Roy Keane to be the man who's holding the fort, looking after the overall thinking of the Irish senior national football team, it's not great. If Martin O'Neill is the manager of the team... So do the Stoke job or do the Ireland job, but you can't do both? Do either or. Yeah. And are you upset about the fact that he's linked with these jobs? Not particularly, are you? No. I'm not... It's good that we have a manager who is still talked about. I mean, nobody was linking Trapattoni with any of these jobs because they all knew that guy's not really good enough to do this. Absolutely, yeah. And I guess it does tell a lot, though, that it's the survival instinct that they want. Hey, look, I mean, we don't have Antonio Conte or José Mourinho managing the Republic of Ireland, and we never will. Yeah, I can't remember who's writing in the papers today that he's gone from a top six manager to a bottom six manager, but it's still the top tier. He's still an excellent manager. He's still highly thought of. I think if we had a slew of people who were bottom six players... Well, we're going to get Mick McCarthy as a replacement, who's a championship manager, and fair enough, whatever, but Mick's a championship manager. He is now. He's a top tier championship manager, which is still a decent level. Middle tier championship manager. Chris Coleman's a championship manager. I mean, exactly. I wouldn't really like Chris Coleman to be the Ireland manager. Yeah, you wouldn't?
He had Gareth Bale.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
He had Gareth Bale.
You do kind of forget that.
Gareth Bale.
How majorly they flopped. And a number of other very good players. They had Aaron Ramsey and Gareth Bale.
Yeah, and Robson Canu. Right. Padraig Harrington was asked by Joe in the pay-per-view, brilliant pay-per-view at the weekend. If you haven't seen it or listened to it, it's available on our YouTube channel on facebook.com/offtheball as well. He was asked about retirement. He had a pretty good answer.
If I can stand up when I'm 80 years of age and somebody's, or even if I'm sitting in a wheelchair, if they'll wheel me out to wave at the crowds, I will do it.
Okay.
Why would you? Like retirement.
Because you love it.
I do love it. I'm obsessed with it. I'm like it really is the thing.
What if you got to a point where you felt you were embarrassing yourself on a course?
I'd do something else in the game.
Okay.
So yes, I wouldn't be competing.
So you would potentially retire from the game, but you might work as a pundit or something like that.
No, not okay, but I'd be more likely to be. I'd want to be involved in it. I'd want to be around it. I will say, and this was a couple of things happened. I played with Faldo in practice round in 2000 at the Masters, and 9 holes, and the man was just fighting so hard going around the golf course. Like, it was a practice round on a Tuesday. And it was like really grinding away. And I said to him, after, what's it all about? And he says, well, if I could just win one more major. And I'm looking at him going, wow, that's not going to change how anybody looks at you. And now in the position I am, I've won 3 majors. I'm not going to change my legacy by going out and winning another tournament or winning even another major. I enjoy what I do, but I'm not going out there to prove anything, trying to change the world. I'm on a busman's holiday.
Yeah, really interesting stuff from Harrington about a range of different things. I thought one of the things that was most interesting was him talking about Wenger when Kimmage was saying, Wenger, like at this stage of his career, he's made whatever it is, 12 million a year for the last 3 years or 8 million a year for the last 3 years. Like, why is he on the touchline with his heart rate up at 66, 67, going absolutely crazy? And Harrington's like, because he's alive. Makes him feel alive.
I don't think he got into football in the first place for the money. I don't think anybody really does get into sport for the money. Certain transfers happen for the money, certainly. And maybe it applies a little bit more to an individual sport, that you really do have to love your sport so much for you to make it to the level that Harrington's at. And maybe that's where he's coming from. But I agree with him. I think Arsene Wenger does, as you say, just feel alive. He just gets this rush of, maybe it is trailing 2-1 and you've just conceded on the break yet again to Swansea City and they're leading at the Liberty and everybody's chanting Wenger out. Maybe that's how he feels alive, and so be it.
I think as well, 67 is very young these days. I think that, people used to die in their 60s in the way that people are now dying in their late 80s, early 90s. And Wenger's probably lived a fairly clean life and he's going to live for a long time. So why the hell would he give up now?
I'd say he's a fit man, yeah.
Tonight on Off the Ball, Michael Rasmussen, who was kicked off the 2007 Tour de France and later admitted to doping throughout his career. And also Padraig Hammond, the Newport County player who used to, of course, play for Rovers, about drawing Spurs in the 4th round of the FA Cup. We'll be back tomorrow morning at 7:45. Before we go, the AM NFL bandwagon rolls on. Dave Comer says, another 1 week season, you're getting there. I mean, probably, but like, Big Ben is actually not as good as Big Ben has been for the last 8 weeks. The time that he threw the 5 interceptions against the Jaguars might actually be in his memory. And Lenny Clark says, I'm all over that bandwagon. And he even has the Jaguars emojis.
All about the upshot, all about the high risk, high reward strategy when it comes to picking a bandwagon. If we pull it off, you won't be laughing at me anymore, whatever that first texter's name was.
We might be doing the show from Jacksonville for the week of the Super Bowl.
Yeah, well, they have lizards and stuff down there, don't they?
That would be a reason not to go.
Yeah, not a bit. Well, I suppose this time of year it's fine.
Scared of lizards?
I have been in Florida once. There was lots of lizards. I don't mind them that much. It's just the
they
big
eat
ones.
you.
Yeah, the big iguanas.
Yeah.
I saw a story yesterday of a Jacksonville fan who was driving to the game, and he had, first of all, I don't know why you would do this, he had a car full of frozen iguanas, and they all defrosted on the car, and suddenly there's live iguanas crawling around his car. And
no, they were dead.
Were they dead?
Well, they must be. They're frozen. They're not alive.
I don't know. My skin is crawling even just talking about the story. I was like, whoa, I don't want to go anywhere near Jacksonville.
Wow. When did you get scared of lizards? What happened?
I don't know. I didn't really know I had, like, it's not really a phobia.
It is now.
It's kind of a faux phobia, if you like.
Okay. Wow. Strange things happen on Off the Ball AM. We will see you bright and early in the AM. Good morning. Good night. See you then.